Hey class, welcome to week 7 of our COMM 313 course. During this week, we are going to look over a couple chapters, which is chapter 8, Media Relations, and chapter 9, Employee Communication. In addition, you are going to have a quiz to complete this week as well. And what I've done is I've actually given you an additional week to complete because next week we do have spring break, so for week 8 we will not have class. So your quiz will be due by Tuesday, March 12th. So let's go ahead and take a look at our syllabus real quick, just to kind of show you what we have coming up. So we're right here for week 7. We're going to be looking at chapter 8 and 9, discussing your individual project, and you're going to have quiz 2 to complete, which is chapters 4 through 7. And I've gone ahead and I've given you until the day before week 9 starts, which is March 12th. That way you have a couple weeks to complete it. I'm sure some of you might be traveling for spring break. In addition, the quiz is only one question. It's a short answer question worth 25 points. There's no time limit to complete it. And this is again going to be due by Tuesday, March 12th, 11:55 p.m. As long as you answer and meet the requirements of what I asked for, then you will receive full credit. If you do not take it, you will receive a 0. So pretty much if you complete every part of the short answer question, you will receive 25 points. And you could click on quiz 2 right here to complete it, and then begin the assessment when you are ready. So let's go ahead and take a look at chapter 8 first, and then we'll review chapter 9, and then we'll go over your individual written report. I do want to give you a reminder too before we go into our lectures. Remember a few weeks ago we looked over who was in your group, and if you scroll down here to week 5, you're going to see who is in your group. And to communicate with your group, you would click here on group discussions, and then you would communicate with your group here, just as a reminder. So please make sure, if you haven't done so already, communicate with your group in here. This is everybody who is in your group, so you could see who's been communicating and who has not been communicating. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at chapter 8. We're not going to get into too much detail with chapter 8. Chapter 8 discusses media relations. But it is it is good to have an understanding on how media relations work in today's day and age of digital technology. So for this chapter, you're going to have an understanding on how journalists and media organizations work together, their roles and values, and discussing the importance of news coverage. And we're also going to explore the use and effectiveness of specific media relation techniques, strategies around new media, Web 2.0, and digital communication platforms. So communicating with media is central to corporate communications. Working with the media is the typical understanding of corporate communications, whether it's print, broadcast, or online media. But when corporate communications is communicating and working with the media, this is what corporate communications is. So journalists, which you should have an understanding of what they are, they consult sources and write news stories, and copy editors edit the stories, amplifying effective media coverage. And media relationship, media provides an important conduit to the public because it generates publicity and provides business coverage that influences stakeholders. So what's good with media relations is, if you take for an example a a press release, this is where you can provide business coverage that can influence stakeholders, whether they're internal or external stakeholders. And of course, journalists do have limited control. They do not decide the final printed story, the first paragraph, which may change the depth. You know, there are some factors that play a role with how the story is prepared and written. And keep in mind, you have your different types of ideology and influence. So the New York Post, this is more of an editor's paper. The Washington Post is a reporter's paper, and so on and so on. So amplification, this is media coverage which can have an amplifying effect on a company's reputation when good or bad news is reported, and impacts reputation through highlighting issues or increasing already determined views about an organization. So if an organization is already in the news and they have some bad press that comes out, this is going to amplify it more into a negative light. And then, of course, you have agenda setting theory. This is how often the media reports on a public or political issue determines issue salience in minds of public. So depending on how often something is viewed, that can really set the agenda with how the stakeholder is going to view something. And you have two levels of agenda setting. You have salience of an organization, and attributes or associations related to an organization, such as facts, neutral observation, and so on. So how are agendas formed? So news organizations' watchdog role means they have to systematically report on news across the economy and across all types of organizations. They cannot wholly perform this role because of a lack of information on smaller companies and the lack of visibility of these organizations. So it's really how the news reports it is how the agenda is going to be formed among the stakeholders and viewers. And agenda building, this is where organizations can have a major influence over media agenda, whether they make large contributions or have a big role or might own the company, whatever it may be, but organizations can have a major influence over media agenda. And here are your agenda differences. So you can kind of take a look at this chart where journalists often dislike corporate communication professionals because they are not focused on issues of public interest. They are not always objective. They withhold information. So it's always difficult for a journalist to get all the information out from a corporate communication specialist from that organization because that corporate communication specialist is really looking out for the best interest of their own organization. So they may not want to give all the information. And then you have framing, the way you frame a message. This is how an organization would like to have its story told. And corporate communication professionals must make journalists interested in the story and ensure that the story is consistent with the organization's preferred framing. So framing is an important part with the way you communicate in corporate communications. How you deliver the message is really going to play an important role with how the public perceives it. And so you have tools for disseminating information such as a press release, a press conference, or even interviews. And then, of course, you have media monitoring and research such as gatekeeping research or even syndicated media monitoring. And then, of course, we have online newsrooms. This allows a company to get its content out in a format that is searchable by and easily acceptable to journalists. So you can see media relations are kind of it's a lot of the information you most likely already know, but definitely review the PowerPoint if you don't understand it too well, but you should have a good understanding of the different types of items we just went over. Now, Chapter 9 talks about employee communication, which is definitely an important aspect in any kind of corporate communication. Since employees are internal stakeholders within an organization, their communication plays a pivotal role in how the organization communicates. So let's take a look at what we're going to be looking at. So we're going to look at employees. They're a crucial stakeholder to the group. The strategies for communicating with employees. How internal communication may strengthen employees' identification with their organization. The use of social media can in internal communication. Oops, sorry about that, guys. I have automatic updates set up. So let's take a look at synonyms. These all mean the same thing. Employee communication, staff communication, and internal communication. They are all the same thing that we're going to be referring to in this chapter. So we have new technology. So employee communication does not always remain inside the organization. Employees can distribute their own information electronically to stakeholders without gatekeepers or control. Blogs where employees can share or review public grievances or even organize and demand action from the organization. But employees can connect across time and space, whether it's email, intranet, video conferencing, or even podcasting. So all in all, you need to understand that employees can communicate outside of the organization as well. So you have two types of employee communication that we're going to be talking about. You have internal communication, which you have management communication, and this is between a manager and a subordinate employee. And then you have corporate information and communication systems. This is the broadcasting of corporate decisions and developments to all employees across the organization. So let's take a look at number one, management communication. This was where a manager may go up to their employee and say, hey, moving forward, we're not going to stock the boxes in the back. We have a warehouse. Whereas corporate information and a communication system this is where the corporation, maybe let's say IKEA, and they broadcast this message to all their stores and they say, hey, we're not storing boxes in this section. We're going to store it over here now. So you can kind of see how the corporation communicates with their employees. So management communication, managers spend most of their time communicating, whether it's face-to-face, email, and corporate communication professionals often support and advise managers on staff communication. So it's important to understand that managers do spend most of their time communicating. So we do have CICS, which stands for Corporate Information and Communication Systems. This is a broader focus than manager to employee dyad. This involves technologies and communication systems, such as maybe there's broadcast corporate decisions and development to employees across the organization, and so on. And this is where you can preserve of communication department, such as who are charged with releasing information to employees through the internet, emails, and even town hall meetings. And you do have complementary nature of employee communication. This is downward and upward communication. So you have downward communication. The information flows from the top of the organization and down. It focuses on what's important, such as the mission, and what is valued, such as the policies. So let's take a look at the corporate calendar system in Siemens. If you're not familiar with Siemens, they're kind of like the Verizon of Europe. So you can kind of see here where they have a business conference where they talk about key concepts, structuring of integration, and it talks about when they do it, how they do it, and it kind of lets the employees know when communication is going to be completed. And then, of course, you have upward communication. This is information from employees, which flows upwards towards managers within the organization, and information that can help profitability and performance. So you have the employees, coworkers, practices and policy, what needs to be done, how it can be done, the employees' ideas, and the responses to their work environment. So with internal communication and organizational identification, let's take a look at organizational identification. This is the perception of oneness with or belongingness to an organization, where the individual defines him or herself in terms of the organization of which he or she is a member. And this usually works greater when you have a good buy-in from the employee because they want to actually be a part of the organization. Not only are you going to say good things about the organization, but this is their identification that they have. And strong organizational identification leads employees to where they have more job satisfaction, they're more cooperative, and they even demonstrate helpful behavior. And then employees can feel proud to belong to an organization, and this is always good when you have employees who do feel proud. Again, going back to this previous slide, these are the benefits that you get. And when an employee's personal values correspond with the organizational identity, they're more likely to identify with it as well. And of course, balance fosters strong level employee identification, whether it's with downward communication or upward communication. It's important to have a good balance. You don't want too much downward communication because this kind of tells your employees that, hey, you have to listen to everything we have to do. You have to do this, and no exceptions. And if you don't have any upward communication, they're not going to feel needed, wanted, or being a part of the organization. But when you do give that upward communication, you're giving them the opportunity to express opinions and influence workplace, is likely to increase employees' identification within the organization. So voice, silence, and stimulating employee participation. This is the degree to which employees speak up, are listened to, and participate in organizational decision making. So when you have an organization that accepts employees to speak up, let them know if something isn't working, not only are they being transparent, but they're also building trust within their organization by saying, hey, tell us if something isn't working because we want to fix it. Again, employees want to say over their work lives, and this is something where they want to feel a part of the organization. This is the conditions and processes leading to organizational silence. Kind of just shows you why employees lead to that and how it happens. You don't really need to know this inside and out, but just kind of read over it, have a good understanding of it. So communication climate. Climates can be open or closed. When it's open, information flows freely between individuals and employees feel free to express opinions. And if it's closed, information is blocked, organizational silence, and employees feel speaking out is a little used. I've worked at an organization where we've had open climate and closed climate as well. And I'll tell you right now, when you have open communication climate, the employees not only work harder and more efficient, but they also feel a part of the organization where they feel that they could speak their mind if something isn't working. And if it's closed, they're going to be more scared. They're not going to want to open up. So you have digital platforms and networking tools, which enables interactive digital dialogue between actual employees, whether it's blogs, online boards, databases, or even files and video sharing. And so you have different types of networks such as production, maintenance, and community of practice. Production networks is where work tasks, innovation networks, maintenance networks kind of develop social relations at work, and community of practice are shared professional interests or project focus. So just keep that in mind. So that's it for chapter 8 and 9. Let's go ahead and take a look at your individual written report. So this is worth 100 points, and it is due May 1st between 7 and 9:45 p.m. You're going to upload it to Sakai. So during the final week of the course, I'm going to go ahead and open up an assignment link. I will show you here on the left side. If you click on assignments, it will be listed here. And the reason we do this is because this is during your final exam. It's not really considered a final, but something needs to be done during the time of the final exam. So we upload our papers during that time. So your background, you're going to look into the different functions of corporate communications department from an organization you choose. The organization you choose must have over 1,000 employees. So it has to be a big organization such as Disney, Facebook, REI, Whole Foods, etc. Your task, discuss the following functions from the organization you choose. You'll need to go into depth for each function with an example which actually occurred within the organization. For media relations, public relations, crisis communications, and employee communication as well. Again, this is worth 100 points in your grade, and I'm going to look into the content of what you discussed and the organizational component of your essay. You will write a minimum 6-page report in third-person point of view. Please use 11 or 12 font size for your report with 1-inch margins in Microsoft Word, and make sure it is single space. Make sure to use headers for each section in bold, and you're going to need the following sections in your report. So you're going to have a title page. Page 2 is the background of the organization, brief overview of 4 functions, and then page 3, 4, 5, and 6 is each function respectively. So you will talk the function background in depth, and then the organization example that you will have to provide, which occurred from these different types of functions. All right, let's see if we missed anything. Again, remember next week is spring break. I will post an announcement next week where we will not be meeting, but we will reconvene again during week 9. So please make sure to complete your quiz, work on your individual written report, and make sure to keep chatting with your group, which you could find here under week 5, the group discussions link, or you could click here on discussions forums, So when you come here, you will just click on your group discussion that you are a part of. So if you guys have any questions whatsoever, please feel free to reach out to me. I wish you all the best of luck and enjoy your spring break next week, guys. Take care.